welcome to another episode of International. This week we're going to be looking at a much forgotten topic, that of Syria. The Syrian war has been sent to the back of the newspaper pages, especially when you consider that the Western media and political elite's attention is preoccupied with Russia, election meddling, hacking, the underlying security of NATO, as well as the debacle of Brexit. Now, the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is set to recover control of the frontier with the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights after rebel fighters in the area agreed to surrender terms. The rebels in al-Qudniyya province at the border with the Israeli-controlled territory have agreed either to accept safe passage to the rebel-held province of Idlib in the northwest or to remain in the area on the state's terms. Now, this was released by a Hezbollah-run news outlet and a rebel source. We don't actually know what the rebel source was. Now, it would mark another major victory for Assad, who has recovered swathes of southwestern Syria over the last month in a Russian-backed offensive that has already forced many rebels to surrender. Now, this report by the Hezbollah-run military news outlet said that the agreement stipulated, and I quote, "the return of the Syrian army represented in the 90th and in the 61st Brigades to the positions that it was in before 2011. Now, a copy of the deal was sent to Reuters by a rebel source included a provision that Russian military police would accompany the same two Syrian army brigades to the ceasefire line and the demilitarized zone according to the 1974 agreement. Now, the Golan Heights is a demilitarized zone that was established in 1974 after the 1973 Middle Eastern War. The provisions did not elaborate on the implications of the deployment of military units in the zone, and this is going to really come into its own when you think about the balance of power between Israel, Iran, Syria, and Russia acting as a kind of buffer between all of the states. Now, there would be further negotiations on the deadline for handing over medium and heavy weapons according to the agreement sent by the rebel source. The US President Donald Trump said at a news conference, the infamous news conference with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday in Helsinki, that both had agreed to work together to help ensure Israel's security. Now, this is going to be exceedingly hard when you consider that the US is on this de facto economic war, exaggeration and enhancement of diplomatic anxieties, aggression and tension against Iran, tackling Iranian oil purchases, but at the same time wants to cooperate with Russia in Syria. This seems to be a contradiction in terms. But more and more we're seeing Putin become an arbitrator, specifically within the Syrian context. But the Russians are taking on a much bigger responsibility. It's not just Syria, but it's also the tensions between Iran and Israel, which are going to really come into the fore.
This is a U.S. mistake that started 7 years ago. And I remember the day on your show when President Obama said, Assad must go. And I looked at you and Joe and I said, huh?